In my presentation, I want to cover 2 points: the professional ethics of climate litigators and a proposition that establishing liability for climate damages will drive a wave of future litigation. Turning to the first of those, it would normally be unexceptional to say that it is our job as lawyers to find remedies for damage suffered by our clients. In that context, it should be unexceptional, perfectly ethical, and not some political statement to do that in the context of seeking remedies for damage caused by climate change. I say that because, and make the point about professional ethics, because some people seem to regard it as some sort of political statement to be going to court about climate change. It doesn't have to be. If we're lawyers acting for clients that have suffered damage because of climate change, going to court is our job. The next point, and the main point I want to focus on in my presentation, is this proposition that establishing liability for climate damages will drive a wave of future litigation. And as a general reference for this part, I would just refer you to an article that I wrote, published earlier this year in the Environmental and Planning Law Journal. It's available on my website at the link that you've been provided in the seminar notice. In that article, I made the point, and I'd make it now, that a lack of resources is a key limiting factor to climate litigation at present, not a lack of liability. Climate litigation will expand exponentially when commercial litigation funding becomes available. Now, to do that, we need to establish that liability exists, and normally liability exists for any material contribution to the damage suffered. And material contribution is widely used. I've just quoted from a statement by Justice McHugh in Henville and Walker, but material contribution is widely used in the common law as well as various statutory schemes for establishing liability for harm in various contexts. So what does material contribution mean in the context of climate change? Just to use a concrete example here, Australia's largest greenhouse polluter is the operator of the Loy Yang A power station, which is in the foreground of this picture. So Loy Yang A is located east of Melbourne in the Latrobe Valley, and it emits about 20 million tonnes or 19 million tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalents each year. The company has operated it since 1997, and it plans to continue to operate it until 2048, so about 50 years of operation, giving a total of 950 million tonnes of CO2. So is that a material contribution? Well, very recently in the Gloucester Resources decision, Chief Judge Preston found that 37 million tonnes of emissions over the 12-year life of the mine in that case was a sizable individual source of emissions, and that there was a causal link between the mine's cumulative emissions and climate change and its consequences. So that level is exceeded every 2 years by the operator of Loy Yang A, and over the 50 years of its operation, it's massively exceeded. So the conclusion I would suggest you'd reach at the moment is that the operator of Loy Yang A makes a material contribution to climate change and is therefore liable for damage caused by climate change, at least proportional to its contribution. So if we look at proportionality of its contribution, and again, I just want to use a concrete example. So the insurance industry's loss footprint for the Australian bushfires that occurred earlier this year, the Australian Black Summer, the loss footprint is estimated at 1.9 billion. So if the operator of Loy Yang A's contribution is 0.2% for 1.9 billion, then the damages that it could be liable for would be 3.8 million plus costs of any litigation. So you're starting to talk serious money there, even though it's only a percentage of the total contribution to the harm. And then you start to think about class actions, and you might start to think about corporate groups such as BHP Billiton, which is Australia's largest greenhouse polluter if you look at a corporate group. And liability of corporate groups is an important topic there's an important recent decision from the UK Supreme Court in Vedanta Resources, which held that a parent company that has sufficiently high levels of supervision and control and sufficient knowledge of what its subsidiaries are doing can be liable for pollution caused by the subsidiaries. So parent company liability is an important topic for climate litigation as well. But if we take it that the parent company or the group can be liable, then BHP Billiton is the 19th largest emitter in history. It's emitted about 0.72% of the globe's historic emissions. So it's in the top 20 of the carbon majors. So if you think about $1.9 billion loss for the Australian Black Summer bushfires again, well, 0.72% equates to 14 million. So again, just using this as an example, you're starting to talk serious money, and when you're talking serious money, serious damages, that's, you're looking at litigation that can attract a litigation funder to go after that pot at the end. So in conclusion, I want to make 3 key points about the general topic of the seminar. Can litigation stop the climate emergency? I'm putting square brackets there, getting worse, because the question that was posed doesn't fully make sense. We're already in a climate emergency. We've already, the Australian Black Summer was already driven substantially by climate change. We've seen 5 mass global coral bleachings. The destruction of the Arctic is well underway. There is a climate emergency right now, without question. So I think the question really is, can litigation stop the climate emergency getting worse? And the 3 points that I would make in relation to this question are: 1, litigation can make a massive difference to the future by recognising liability of large corporate polluters and compensating for damage. If we can establish liability, there is going to be a wave of litigation. That relates then to the second and third points. Damages for the harm caused by companies making a material contribution to climate change is very likely to be established under domestic laws and will be a major growth area for future climate litigation. And thirdly, as soon as damages become available and litigation funders see a commercial return on funding litigation in this area, we can expect a wave of litigation against large polluters and large bankruptcies that will flow from that. These are real risks that need to be priced into investments now. So just in conclusion, I started with professional ethics of climate litigators and have unpacked this idea about establishing liability for climate damages will drive a wave of future climate litigation, and I look forward to questions at the end of the seminar.